The tried and true tradition of the black community celebrating the release of a criminal. This time it's rapper Max B, but believe it or not, this is a regular thing where Negroes pull out the red carpet for some criminal, even if you don't know his name. It's not just rappers. Some criminal at any given hood, nationwide, or neighborhood with mostly Negroes, they're always celebrating the release of some criminal. But when it's a rapper, someone with some celebrity attached to him, it highlights yet a further example that there's no denying the fact that so-called black culture, the culture, is about celebrating crime, criminals, and thuggery. That's just the reality. So when people stereotype most black people for being criminals, what we see right here is proof they're telling the truth, because even the so-called black people, which are most, who don't commit crimes, they celebrate criminals and they run defense plays for criminals. They never call gangbangers, rapists, murderers, violent offenders sellouts. The only Negroes that get called sellouts are conservatives and Negroes that vote Republican. That's what gets you categorized as a sellout in the community. I mean, one of the worst human beings that got celebrated and still gets celebrated today, Freeway Rick Ross, who literally participated in a genocide based on his contributions in the crack era, which we're still suffering from today. We have people who now have produced grandchildren, in some cases great-grandchildren, because, usually they were teen moms, especially back in that crack era, who are now homicidal maniacs, YNs, on the streets today. They came from those kinds of homes. But instead of getting condemned when Freeway Rick Ross got out, he too was celebrated. And in fact, a rapper by the name of Rick Ross used his name to celebrate him. And of course, they eventually had a falling out where they called him a fraud, but nonetheless, he was viewed as a hero. And when I look up news stories about this situation, you see mainstream media covering it. No condemnation whatsoever. But when Kanye West puts on a Trump hat, or Candace Owens criticizes Negroes here and there, they literally treat it like some sort of civil rights violation or crime. Now, again, this is a guy that did 16 years in prison when he was sentenced to 75 years, which involved a conspiracy charge that led to a deadly murder. And so, again, these are the kinds of people that Negroes set up as heroes, as people to aspire to. He's credited with coming up with the wave, whatever that bullshit is supposed to mean. Because even when I used to listen to rap heavy, I would come across this guy being mentioned by other rappers, but I never listened to his music. I heard a little bit of it, sound like trash, like the Gucci Man of the North type rap. And I had no interest in it. But, yeah. You can see a number of rappers that will embrace this guy, and, their Negro fans will celebrate this guy. His authenticity is granted by the fact that he served over a decade behind bars. Because that's what makes you black. That's what gives you credibility as a so-called black person. Now, in reality, we know black is just an invention by liberal whites and Jews, and mostly used as a tool, a political tool for the Democrat Party. because that's another way you can be not black. Don't vote Democrat. Vote blue no matter who. But yeah, I mean, this is just yet another pathetic display, and is yet another example why I have no issue if rap is ever actually banned from the mainstream. Even though we know that will never happen because the mainstream promotes degeneracy and low life characters. I mean, that's the whole point of the mainstream, is to romanticize rotten human beings and portray them something as different. But yeah. So that's all I have to say about this story. I just thought I'd talk about this because, again, it just highlights another example of why I have zero interest in being a part of any sort of black community or culture, because this is the bullshit that it represents and celebrates.